Hey everybody, how's it going? Going to start out with a review of the first part of groups here. So, with that, let me start you out here. A little congested today, so I'm trying to.
Hello class, and welcome to our lecture on group dynamics and group leadership as part of our group skill. As we look at the objectives for the week, I want to remind you to review the other materials for the week prior to viewing this lecture, as it is intended to supplement your reading. By the end of the week, you should be able to identify issues that influence group dynamics, including planning, structure, member roles, and activities, and identify and describe leadership styles and the personal qualities of group leadership. First, we will discuss group dynamics. In the gliding text, our author reminds us that in any group, it is a mistake to ever conclude that nothing is happening within or between the members. Even when you cannot see them, group dynamics are at play. A social influence emerges in the group that manifests itself by altering actions, attitudes, and feelings. This is reflected in the quotation you read on this title page, reminding us that groups are dynamic entities that have a direct and indirect impact on their members. As we consider group dynamics, we need to keep in mind some basic principles which tell us that, as a general rule, primary affiliation groups, those with which people most identify, such as family or peers, exert greater pressure on individuals than secondary affiliation groups, those with which people least identify, such as a city or confederation. Let's take a second as I ask you to apply this to your own life. What would be examples of your own primary and secondary affiliations? Who are the members of these groups? Keep in mind that primary affiliation groups are those with which you most identify, like family and secondary affiliation groups are those with which you least identify, such as city or confederation. Now think about the roles you play in your primary groups. How does your behavior differ in these circumstances compared to when you're in a secondary group, like when you're riding a bus or a train? The influence on group members is known as group dynamics. Kurt Lewin described group dynamics as everything that goes on in a small group, including purpose, communication patterns, power, control issues, and member roles. By understanding these forces, group specialists are able to understand the nature of groups and how interactions among members affect groups' development. The forces within a group, which we call group dynamics, are made up of two elements, group content and group process. We can understand group dynamics by understanding each of these elements and the extent to which they exist within a group. Group content refers to the actual words, ideas, and information that is exchanged within a group, as well as the purpose of the group. This kind kind of information is necessary but deficient for a group to operate. Although members need a certain amount of information in order to achieve their goals, too much information can be overwhelming. Additionally, people in groups, like people individually, tend to not make their most important decisions based on cognitive knowledge alone. Rather, decision-making involves interaction with others in pursuit of a purpose, where individuals have a chance to understand their options, assess their feelings and thoughts in the presence of others whom they trust and value. When we consider that they're often a context for individuals looking to affect change in their life, we can begin to understand where group content may not be enough. This is where group process comes in. Group process is the interaction of group members with one another. As groups develop, less time is spent on content material and more time is spent on process functions. You can see here 7 types of group process: contagion, conflict, anxiety, consensual validation, unality, family reenactment, and installation of hope. Each of these are described in your text and will be helpful to refer back to as you prepare for your first quiz. Group processes enable members to connect and build trust and safety, both of which are necessary for optimal group conditions. Keeping in mind that by understanding group dynamics, leaders can better understand the nature of groups and how interactions among members affect the group's development, we see here how leaders can use questions to guide the interplay between content and process. Content questions may include, what do we have to do? And what do we need to accomplish our goals? While more process-driven questions would include, who am I with you, and who are we together? You'll notice that the content questions drive members to respond with information, and the process questions encourage connection. Process must be balanced with content regardless of the type of group being conducted. Ideally, the content and process questions remain balanced throughout the session, with leaders prompting group members to attend to both an and process rather than focusing on one and then the other at varying times. Keeping both content and process in play helps group members connect the activities and discussion to the deeper work at hand. Leaders can influence group dynamics through pre-planning, structure, exercises and activities, group interaction, and members' roles. Pre-planning includes the time spent during the pre-group stage when the leaders plan for the type, duration, selection and screening criteria, and evaluation strategies. Taking time to consider these aspects of the group is essential in facilitating a successful group. Pre-planning requires clarity of purpose, establishing a group setting, and deciding the timing for group sessions. Each of these components, as well as the size of the group, can have significant impacts on the success of the group. For example, groups that include too many members are likely to experience subgrouping, which can result in some members dominating the group while others remain silent. Group structure is an aspect of group dynamics that refers both to the physical setup of a group and the interaction of groups in relation to the group as a whole. The physical structure may include the seating arrangement, and your book provides a few examples and descriptions of some possibilities. Group exercises and activities can help bring members together by facilitating interaction between members and can be used at any time in the group process while keeping in mind that the intensity of the activity, or the extent to which it requires self-disclosure, should match where the group is in its overall life. Additionally, overloading the group with activities can detract the purpose of the group, and this should also be a consideration in how exercises and activities influence group dynamics. Group interaction describes the verbal and nonverbal behaviors and attitudes that go along with all of the ways members relate to one another. How can leaders influence these group dynamics? It begins with first simply observing and noting how group members speak and to whom, which also includes noticing silence. These observations can then be used as guiding information as the leader facilitates discussion, addresses the group in the here and now, and prompts member interactions. Member roles describe the situational identity that members take on in the context of a group. These roles may be based on the member's own expectations for themselves or others and strongly influence member behavior. One potential pitfall of roles is when members fall into dysfunctional ways of relating, perhaps chosen in an attempt to adapt to their environment. The book specifically notes how adult children of Alex may take on the role of hero, scapegoat, or mascot, which often detract from their growth in the group context. You may be able to think of a group that you've been a part of, and perhaps may even be able to think of a role you played in that group. Member roles are most often different than their identity outside of the group context, and group leaders can again observe member behavior to better understand the roles that members have taken on within the group and how those roles contribute to the nature of the group and the group's development. Variables like member commitment, readiness, and the feeling of belonging, acceptance, and security are often understood as positive group variables and promote cooperation within the group. Through his research in group work, Irvin Yalom has found 11 therapeutic factors at work in successful groups, and these are often known as curative factors. Each is outlined in the next 2 slides and in your textbook on pages 46 and 47. You can find these on page 46 and 47 of your book in more detail. But the curative factors include installation of hope, universality, imparting information, altruism, the corrective experience, the development of socializing techniques, as well as imitative behavior, interpersonal learning, group cohesiveness, catharsis, and existential factors. In addition to these positive group variables, negative group variables also operate in groups and can include avoiding conflict, abdicating group responsibilities, and becoming narcissistic. Learning about the various dynamics at play in group work can help leaders better understand the nature of groups and how interactions among members affect the group's development. Group dynamics influence how members feel, behave, and react in the group context, and greatly influence the overall success of the group. Leaders may observe group dynamics in multiple ways, which may include videotaping sessions with client permission, or journaling as a reflective exercise after sessions. Leaders can also take advantage of the pre-group stage with pre-planning as one way to promote positive group variables and general group success. And all group leaders would be wise to realize that group dynamics play a powerful role in how groups operate.
All right, so I know you guys are getting into the second round of your major projects in the class, so getting ready for different things in groups and leading a group. So we've mentioned the girls' circle and some of the stuff you do for girls' circle. See if I can find you week 5 too. After forming, file, open recent. There it is, group chapter 5. So in the initial stage of the group, some of your people that you lead as a social worker might test the atmosphere, get acquainted. Risk taking is low. Exploration is tentative. Central issues are trust versus mistrust, and also inclusion versus exclusion. So that's the stuff that comes up. There's periods of silence and awkwardness. Members are deciding how much they'll disclose and how safe the group is. Anxiety over being accepted or rejected is a common fear. Concern about the judgment of others is another one. Afraid of appearing stupid. Concerns about not fitting into the group. Not knowing what's expected, and then concerns over communicating feelings and thoughts effectively. Here's some advantages of just keeping it here and now. So if you do the here and now focus, dealing with the here and now energizes the group. Members are best known by disclosing here and now experiencing, and being in the here and now serves as a springboard for exploring everyday life concerns. Also, leaders' attitudes, and that would be you all as the social worker. What are the leaders' attitudes about some of this stuff? And that is careful attending and genuine listening. It's also understanding verbal and nonverbal behaviors. Also, empathy, genuineness, and self-disclosure. And then also the caring confrontation. So like challenging people could be one of the things. Challenging them on different behaviors and whatnot. So when you're establishing goals, the main task is helping members formulate clear and specific goals. If there's absence of goals, that could lead to considerable floundering and aimless sessions. That's why we always have goals and objectives, even in like your course syllabus. Like, here's what you're going to be able to do at the end of the semester. Here's what you should consider doing. Also, identifying goals can be a collaborative process. When I do treatment plan goals with my clients, I have them come up with it. I actually have them pick out something they wanted to work on, because then it is more real to them and they'll actually participate and do it. So that's a big deal. Also, assisting members in goal setting. So use contracts and homework assignments. So even as a social worker, you'll still give out homework and have homework. Like, you'll give your client some homework and tell them you'll do stuff occasionally, make sure you follow through. Now, the group norms, you want to enable a group to attain its goals, and it can be implicit or explicit. So some examples of group norms: expectation of promptness, that they'll be on time, or regular attendance, however you attend. I know it's definitely a lot of deal. And then also norm of sharing oneself in personal ways. Expectation of giving meaningful feedback, so like talking with them about stuff and how they can make things better. Members are encouraged to offer both support and challenge to each other. And then members functioning within the here and now context of the group, so you can keep it in the present moment, which is kind of a big deal. So the effective therapeutic relationship, they've done some research on this and things that are helpful. And a few of those are on the considerable evidence of the importance of a positive therapist-client relationship. So like keeping it real, and that's contributing factor to positive change in clients. So you want to strive to develop a reasonably open therapeutic style with appropriate and facilitative self-discourse. The three key constructs capture the essence of the therapeutic relationship and group. Also, aggressive confrontation is cited in reviews of research as the leadership style with the highest risks. So here's members' guidelines to benefit from a group. First, you want to help establish trust. That's definitely a big one. Let them know it's a safe place and that they can talk and help figure things out with you. Help establish trust, express persistent reactions, come prepared to group sessions. So have the materials that you're bringing and things that will help with them and for them. Then also decide for yourself what and how much to disclose, and then be an active participant. So participating in different ways. Be open to feedback and consider what you hear. So as leaders, we can shift on point with different groups and shift our styles. Member guidelines to benefit from a group. So says, in a group setting, how soon would you have the group interact with each other to build community? So most groups are only a few months long. So the first day is okay within the group. That's not saying they go like hang out outside of the group, but there may be team building stuff like that very first day and getting to know each other, maybe even setting goals like what you get out of the group, why you came in the first place. It might be that they are court ordered and they just want to make sure they stay off probation. So hopefully that answers your question. And maybe even after the first one, have them keep a journal and do homework assignments in between sessions to maximize your learning. And then summary of leader functions. This is, again, you guys as the social workers. Here's what you would do. Division of responsibility, so like how to achieve a balance of sharing responsibility with members. Degree of structuring, creating a structure that will enable members to make maximum use of the group process. Opening group sessions, like how to best open a group and help members gain focus. And then also closing the group session, which if you have that Girl Circle manual, I sent it to all of you guys. It's in the announcements. It shows you exactly how to open and close each group, like specific things you can do. If it is like a song, you start with ringing of a bell, then talking about highs and lows. Maybe closing is your goals for the week. What would you like to accomplish? And if it's the very last session, like your overall goals to get from things. It says closing group sessions, how to best bring a session to closure without closing down further work later on. So summary of the members' functions. We were talking about the initial stage. Oh, I guess that's me. Members actively create a trusting climate and express fears, hopes, concerns, and reservations. Also expectations regarding the group. They also make themselves known to others in the group and are involved in the creation of group norms. Then also establish personal and specific goals that will govern group participation. And finally, learn the basics of the group process, especially how to be involved in group interactions. So, this is the one I was actually looking for, okay. Because I feel like this is storming, norming, implementation, and then of course week 5. So forming the group is right here. Okay. So we'll start on this one and finish it Friday, just kind of review it now, but.
Welcome to our first lecture on group stages. In this lecture, we will be looking at the first stage of group development, forming, as part of our group skills in substance abuse counseling course. As we look over the objectives for the week, I want to remind you to review the chapters for the week prior to viewing the lecture, as it is intended to supplement your reading. By the end of the week, you should be able to identify the factors necessary for forming a group and describe the tasks of a beginning group. As your book points out, there are many ways to categorize and describe the stages that functional groups go through. And despite the differences in labels, most agree that groups go through between 4 and 5 stages in the life of a group. Back in the 1970s, 2 researchers named Huffman and Jensen identified 5 stages of group development: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. This still stands as a very common way for discussing group development. You may refer to the table in your book on page 84 if you want to see a comparison of a few different ways that authors have conceptualized the stages and transitions of group development. Forming a group is a process that takes several steps, and although some of the steps may be completed at the same time, none may be skipped if the group is going to form properly and thrive. First, every group relies on a clear and thoughtful rationale for existence. Groups that attempt to form without a strong rationale are likely to be unproductive and potentially harmful for their members. Leaders must also decide on the theoretical framework from which to work, and the theoretical format should be appropriate for the purposes of the group. The successful formation of a group also relies on practical planning, like the meeting time and place, and leaders should consider potential obstacles in planning this group. Considering how the members get to the meeting, if the group's intended for a certain population, say school-age children or elderly people, transportation may be a specific issue to address. Publicized group is another consideration that is addressed during the forming stage, and it's important to keep in mind that how a group is announced influences both the ways that it will be received by potential members and also the kind of people who will join. Take some time to consider whether word of mouth, personal contact, and/or written announcements will best suit your intended audience, and that will contribute to the intentionality of your group formation. Screening and pre-training are processes that involve meeting potential members either individually or in a group format to determine who should join a group and who should not, by identifying needs, expectations, and commitment, challenging myths and conceptions, and conveying information to those potential members. This is an opportunity not only for group leaders to select members, but also for potential members to make sure that the group is something they're truly interested in. Once members have been selected, pre-training serve as almost an orientation session to help members get acclimated. The selecting of group members and group leaders can be seen as an outcome of the screening and pre-training, with leaders selecting group members and group members selecting to be part of the group with those leaders. Once we have a group, there are a number of tasks that must be accomplished during the first session, including dealing with apprehension, reviewing goals and contracts, specifying rules, setting limits, promoting positive interchange among members, and resolving potential group problems. A certain level of anxiety is considered a natural part of beginning groups, and group leaders can address anxiety directly in the group or work to clarify any issues that seem to arise as a result of member anxiety. Reviewing goals and contracts within the group is an opportunity to restate the purpose of the group during the first session and allow members to share more about their own personal goals. Although some groups may begin with an established set of group rules, the first session is a great time to review these rules and also allow members to make contributions to the rules. Stating rules in positive terms rather than negative terms will help set the tone of the group. For instance, rather than having a rule against violence, the group could state that members will respect the physical and psychological safety of others at all times. Limits help members understand boundaries of the group, and limits can be addressed during the initial session, but must also be addressed when members test them in the group setting, either by breaking rules or norms. Group leaders can promote positive interactions among group members by being enthusiastic, by drawing out members, holding focus on interesting topics, or shifting the focus when topics are irrelevant or interesting to only a few members, by cutting off any hostile or negative interactions as well. There are a number of problems that can occur during the formation of a group and afterward, some of which involve people, and some of which involve process. Subgroups are one such example of a problem that can come up in group process where cliques of members band together and may become troublesome. Leaders must remain tuned in to interaction patterns and promote interchange among members, potentially by providing more direction for interaction through exercises or through activities. Your textbook authors also addresses with group member behavior, and the caution that I want to echo as you consider difficult member roles during the first session is that the tendency to label members based on their behavior can be incredibly distracting and disrupt the success of a group. Rather than labeling members based on potentially difficult behavior, it can be helpful instead to see behavior as a symptom of an issue that's developed in the group and approach it with an open mind. For instance, silent members may be feeling hostile or attempting to withdraw from the group, but they may also be shy, reflective, or simply slow to assert themselves. Instead of seeing a silent member as difficult, it can be helpful to ask a simple open-ended question like, what do you think about what the other members have been saying? Pages 102 to 104 provide strategies for the beginning stage of a group, and I would encourage you to review these pages carefully as they're quite helpful. Over the course of the next 3 weeks, I'll ask you to view clips to illustrate the issues we're discussing. To access the videos, you may need to sign in using your UC ID and password. You should then be connected directly to the videos. If you have any trouble accessing the video once you successfully logged in, try using the link again. In summary, forming is characterized by initial caution associated with any new experience, attempting to avoid being rejected by others. During this first stage of group development, group members try to be superficial, eccentric conversation around historical or future events that do not have a direct impact on the group. Tasks during this beginning stage include dealing with apprehension, reviewing member goals and contracts, specifying rules, setting limits, and promoting positive interchange. This serves to conclude our lecture on forming, and I will see you next week.
All right, so there was a quick clip on leading in the here and now that I wanted to pop on to you guys. So let's see here, leading in the here and now groups. And then a quick video, so we get to see a piece of it. In the initial stage.
What if you had a wardrobe that practically handed you the perfect outfit every day? If you're a professional woman and you want...
We're going to spend 2 video lectures learning about process groups, as you've probably gathered thus far in our series. Process groups are some of the more, I would say, challenging.
There was a better one where they actually show the groups interacting with living in the here and now. So if you look it up, it is living in the here and now.
I'd like, if we could, go back still to that question of impressions that people have, feelings that people have right here from what they've seen of one another in this meeting. Anybody got any thoughts about that?
Well, I'm a little worried about Alice because she's so quiet. You just sit there, you don't have very much to say this afternoon.
You know, it takes me a long time to get comfortable in this kind of group. It just seems so intense here. You know, like every word is being studied. I'm just afraid to what others will think about me.
Well, I saw you smiling earlier, Alice. I thought that you were judging me.
Being judgmental? I didn't get that. I just felt she didn't want to be put on the spot.
Alan, I noticed that you attempted to take the focus off of Alice during the introductory round. You seem to be very sensitive to her discomfort.
Well, I disagree with that. I don't believe that he was being sensitive to her. I think he should have given her the full time to say what she had to say. I think Alan may have actually just wanted more time for himself. How do you feel about that, Alice? Let's check that out.
It's not true. I don't want the spotlight. You know, I'm very shy, and in fact, when I go to parties, I make it a point to come in late so that I can have the hostess clean up the glasses.
How was it for you today in group, Alice? No glasses to clean here.
No, actually, I thought about bringing some coffee cake at the next meeting.
And maybe some glasses.
Depends on what your experience though. I want to just interrupt you for a minute, because I think something really important happened here just a couple minutes ago. I want to just focus on just a second. I'm really interested, Bob, in what you just said about your own gay experience when you were younger. Have you ever said that before to anyone else?
Once, 10 years ago to my therapist.
And until this moment, this could be never told anyone else, never told peers.
No, I've never told any group of people that, no.
I have a hunch that that was a real gift to Alan.
I don't know, I guess I get so wrapped up in my own emotions, I don't think about other people's feelings. I guess that's what Betty meant when she told me about it a couple of weeks ago.
But Alan, I don't think you're still acknowledging Bob's gift to you.
I guess you're right. I don't know why it's so difficult for me just to come out and say thank you. I mean, thank you all, because you've all been supportive. You've all helped me. I appreciate it. I got it off my chest.
I'm glad you did, Alan. You feel finished, or there are other parts of this you want to work on today?
Well, not today.
So that is one of the earlier group sessions. You were asking if you can like engage folks. And as you see, they actually are engaging one another super early in the group. These alexanderstreet.coms are good, but I think you do need a subscription. That's what we were talking about in the PowerPoint before. So you get kind of like a sample off of this if it actually works. So that is, I know we're right at time. Oh, it's going to go offline. So this is the sample of the initial stage they give you.
We're going to be here for a long time, maybe 6 hours. That's great. You signed a release, which has given many people permission. You've given people permission to look at this tape. However, it's going to be edited. And what I'd like to say, and then you decide how you feel about this, is this, that I'd like to ask you, when you leave or when you're chatting with anyone outside, you go home and talk to your loved ones, that you we're going to be here for a long time, maybe 6 hours. That's great. You signed a release, which...
So some training master's degree programs, and you'll get this if you do your FSW, they will like videotape, film, and observe how you both counsel and lead a group. So here's the other small one that they have on Alexander Street. It's just a sample of it. Conflict in the group.
Anyone want to start today?
I do. I felt that I had responded to Danilo when some time ago about mothering and being protective. I really felt like I did that. And I know I caught your eye a couple of times. And so when you were feeling so that you expanded in a group, I was feeling inside, I don't think I did that, but I wasn't willing to say that to you.
So that one's a piece of like some of the conflict that comes up. And of course, these are just little snippets they'll give you. Unless if we subscribe. This one's also a little bit longer.
Yeah, but that's all part of the intellectualizing process. Do you actually get to the feeling stage
Ben
with him?
cries when he tells you, and he cries with a lot of feeling about an incident he remembers in which he was very much a part of the problem. Yes. You see, I think we as workers, leaders, we get upset by the offenses that people bring in. And first instinct is to look at them and say, well, how can you say that? Especially if you identify with a wife, it's a lot easier, right? At that point. That's the way they've been. That's the way they worked out their relationship. When they feel safe to let those barriers down, they will. I believe that will happen in the course of the session. In fact, it will happen as we start to deal with the issue of the authority theme. I think Ben was raising the authority theme just then. But I think the way I tried to reach for it wasn't very helpful. I was precipitous. I didn't do it well. I don't know if you remember, at one point I turned to Ben and I said, and are you afraid that Neva and Ian and I might say the same thing, meaning, you should break up your marriage? And he turned to me and said, I'm not afraid of that. I mean, I know where I stand. He was angry. Did you get that? He was really angry. I think I got put back with it by him. I was simply trying to encourage him to relate the experience with the other psychiatrist to us. But I think I did it in a clumsy way. And I think the way I did it made him feel more tense rather than less. And maybe I was too precipitous. As a result, when he reacted that way, my first instinctual response was to say, well, maybe we should go around the room and have other people talk. If I could have that moment again, I'd stay with Ben and ask him to tell us some more about his experiences with psychiatrists. Or I would turn to the rest of the group and I would say, how about the rest of you? Have you had some bad experiences? I argue that what Ben's really dealing with at the beginning is the authority thing, me, the leader. And until he sorts that out, he's not going to let any defenses down. Right after he does sort that out, it becomes quite a different thing. Some reactions or questions. I'm going to try to keep the question periods brief so that we can get off the tape. But if you've got one, did I touch on it? Okay. You want to move to the second section and see what happens? Okay. In the second excerpt of the tape, Gwen and Ron need to talk about their experiences. And I'd like to give you a little feel of Gwen and Ron's experiences, and then Joanne and Tony, just so you get a sense of the slowness in which things start. And then I'll take us right to the point where I get the courage to go back to them, and once again, more skillfully, open up the question of the authority thing. But I'd like you to feel what the group sounds and looks like up to that point. Let's go back to the tape.
Maybe, Ben, we can move around a little. Okay, Ron, sure, go ahead here. Sure. How do you see it?
Oh, pass, right.
Okay, sure. How this? You don't have to go in order. It takes some time. By the way, you could respond to what Ben said or add some of the things yourself. We're not going to solve all the problems tonight. Hope you realize that. What we're going to try to do, though, is to get a feel for how it looks to you right now, the marriage and the relationship. And that might help. I think you've got this thought.
I can understand what I was talking about, depression. That's been our problem. Is that I've gotten into such a state of depression where I can't function as a mother, wife, or anything. I feel I've lost my identity. And I certainly don't think that the separation is nuts. And I've had some pretty bad experiences with psychiatrists as well. I really feel for you when you say that. I can understand that. But the problem is to be able to sort out and find out what feelings I am feeling, recognize the feelings for what they are, and to try and get myself out of the hole that I'm into. That's the tough part.
How's it affect your relationship with Ron? How's it affect your relationship with Ron?
Well, it's very strenuous, very, very low strain. A lot of tension when I'm sick and down, because most responsibility of the kids in the house falls onto Ron's shoulders, and there's a breaking point for him somewhere along the line too.
So sometimes there is couples group therapy, and you'll engage with some of those. If you guys do choose to do some of them, let me know. I know you're preparing, leading your group, and I will put in where you turn those in today. So see you Friday.